everybody. This is going to be a short video talking about what I call the two main orientations that happen in standing poses on the mat, and what's the difference between the two kind of categories of poses in terms of foot placement and where the toes are pointing and where the chest and the belly and the pelvis is all pointing. So you can see I've got my mat down on the ground here, and I've got two black straps going down the length of the mat. You can think about these like train tracks, or another way sometimes that I discuss these two different orientations is skis versus being on a snowboard. So I'm going to get into mountain pose on these tracks, or you can think of them as skis. So I've got my left foot on the left side of the track and my right foot on the right side of the track. So my heels are on their respective tracks, and the tracks are about sit bone distance apart. Some people prefer a slightly wider stance, some people prefer a little bit narrower stance. So go for what feels comfortable to you and experiment. And then the other thing is, I know oftentimes teachers' cues that the toes have to face straight forward. And while that's a good alignment for most people, it doesn't work for everybody. So please give yourself permission if having the toes turned a little bit more out feels more stable and comfortable in the knees, the hips. Having the feet turned slightly out is perfectly fine, okay? Because we're all different. Now from here, I'm going to start to step back into a warrior one sort of stance. And so this is the category of poses where you stay facing the short side of the mat. And these are poses like warrior one, high lunge, even a low lunge, intense side stretch, revolve triangle. All of those are poses where the chest, the belly, the pelvis keep facing forward towards the front short edge of the mat. So I'm going to take my right foot and I'm going to step it back, and my heel ends up on that same side of the train tracks. So I still have my left foot on this side of the track. You can't see it because I'm so well lined up here that track disappeared. And then this heel is on the opposite side of the track. And you can see my toes are angled a little bit off the track, but I'm still forward with my chest and my ribs and my pelvis. So let me show you what sometimes happens when stepping backwards or even forwards into a warrior one stance, either backwards from mountain pose or forwards from down dog, is people step in as they step forward or back. So I'll show you what that looks like. If I step backwards and inwards, see now I'm unstable. I'm more on the left side of the track with both heels. My knee, my hip, my lower back, not to mention I feel off balance. So this is a common thing that people do in this pose. So I'm going to return to mountain pose with the two train tracks. Now I'm going to take that right foot, I'm going to step it back, and I'm going to focus on keeping it towards that right train track. And now the next thing I want to talk about is when you start to bend this left knee in this pose. When you bend the knee, the center of the thigh should track with the middle of your foot. So a common thing that happens here is that the knee collapses inwards like this. And this is very destabilizing for the knee, the ankle, the hip, and it just doesn't feel so good on the back either. So you see the difference using the muscles of the hip and the leg to keep that knee pointing straight ahead, the center of the thigh lined up with the center of my foot. Okay, so that's the warrior one stance, short edge facing poses, intense side stretch and the like. Now for mountain pose, I'm going to go to the other category of standing poses, which is sometimes called the snowboard stance. So we'll start in expanded leg stretch position. I'm going to take my left foot this time and I'm going to step it back. And then I'm going to turn my toes to face towards the long edge of my mat. I'm going to lean back a little bit so you can see that my heels are lined up on this one track now. How wide apart you go on expanded leg stretch, how much your toes turn in or forward or a little bit out, those are all things for you to play around with in your own body. So this is expanded leg stretch. Now everything's facing the long edge of the mat. My chest, my ribs, my pelvis, my thighs, my toes, all facing the long edge. And then this is a good starting point for poses like Warrior Two, extended side angle, and triangle pose, those sorts of poses. So from this expanded leg stance, I'm gonna turn my right foot out. So my heel's still on the track, and now I got the middle of my foot on the track. And my left foot really didn't move. Only thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click that left heel out just a little bit for my body, okay? And so again, you get your front heel more lined up with the back heel. What tends to happen sometimes in these Warrior Two extended side angle kind of poses is people move this front foot in so it's more in line with the toes or the arch of the back foot. And as you can see, my thigh is now not really tracking with my hip. And I can really feel a difference in my knee and my hip and in my back. So I'm going to move that right foot back onto the right side of the track. And now as I bend and straighten this knee, it just feels more stable, it feels easier, it feels more aligned. And again, there's gray areas. Some people might need this foot slightly more to the right. Some people might bring it in slightly. Generally speaking, using the one track analogy on this one tends to work for most people. And it's very important that you hear the most because everybody's different. So you need to find what works for you. And then you'll see that my pelvis is not facing straight out this way anymore. Because I've turned this foot out, my pelvis is now facing a little bit on the diagonal this way. And then as I bend this knee, same thing as before, you want to make sure that the center of the thigh tracks with the center of the foot. So if you can't get your leg turned out this much, as long as the foot and the knee are aiming the same direction, this is okay. My toes are angled in at the same direction as my knee. But to have the toes angled in and the knee out or any other combination, probably not a good choice. Okay, so I'm going to return to mountain pose, feet on the tracks. And I'll just recap. So in short edge facing poses, you keep the sit bone distance, 2 train tracks sort of alignment. And if you're in high lunge, you have the ball of the foot with the heel lifted. So you got the left foot on the left track and the right foot on the right track. So that's that stance. And again, you make sure that this thigh tracks with the toes. Make sure it's not going too far in or too far out. You can see what that does. And then the other class of poses is where you're facing the long edge, where you start with your heels lined up. And then maybe you're just folding forward from here into expanded leg stretch, or you're turning the foot out. And again, making sure you check that knee alignment and the foot alignment and get those back toes turned as much as you need to. If you need to turn them in more and turn your pelvis more to keep this leg in a good alignment, that's a better choice. Okay? All right. That's it for today. I hope this maybe gives you a bit more awareness and understanding of how to place your feet in these standing poses.